Hey, welcome back to 40 Days of Holiness. Today is day 28, I think. What am I supposed to surrender exactly? Well, in Romans chapter 12, we read that it talks about surrendering your body, right? And that's great, and that's good direction. But here's a distinction that I've found that might help you. Some people wonder, what's different about surrendering now for the purpose of holiness versus surrendering for salvation? Well, in salvation, you're surrendering conflict, right? We're no longer at war. We're no longer in active rebellion against God. But when we talk about surrendering to God as a Christian, what are we talking about there? Because we're not in rebellion against God anymore. What's left to surrender? Well, if you've been following along, you probably have some idea of the answer and where we're going. But here's the way I would explain it. In salvation, we surrender the bad. In holiness, we surrender the good. In salvation, we surrender rebellion. In holiness, we surrender our powers. All my being's ransomed power, somebody said. In salvation, we surrender evil, but in holiness, we surrender blessings. One songwriter said, as I mentioned a moment ago, all for Jesus, all my being's ransomed powers. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So why does all this need to be surrendered? They're not bad. No, they're not. But the corrupting influence of self-will breaks down and infects everything that is intended to be good. It does it in the world, right? Politics isn't supposed to be bad. God instituted it for good, but it gets infected with pride and the self-sins, and it goes bad. Same with marriage, right? God made it as a blessing, but touched with self, it hurts millions of people every year. Sexuality, many other things. When we surrender these blessings, we begin to see the problem more clearly. The problem is self. There's a story about Jacob in the Bible, in the Old Testament. Esau is coming, right? And Jacob's always been this self-sufficient man. He can figure it out. And now he's up against a problem he can't solve. So Esau's coming and he sends ahead flocks and herds and servants. And then he sends Leah and her kids that were not so precious to him. And then he sends Rachel and her kids that are more precious to him. And then he stays behind on the other side of the river and prays. And he has to wrestle with God and wrestle with who he is as Jacob. He has to name the self. He has to name the deceiver. By the way, that's what Jacob means, the one who trips others, the one who grasps the heel. And then God blesses him. In the same way, God may have you surrender many things that are in themselves good, like Jacob's flocks and herds and servants and family. He wants to get down to the point where he can have you recognize that the problem isn't other things. He wants you to see self clearly and surrender that. Self-will, self-sovereignty. And then he will cleanse that self and make it wholly his and give you self-control as the fruit of the Spirit in its place. So that's what we surrender. We surrender to God all that is good so that he can make it truly a blessing by dealing with the sin nature, the self-life that is behind it all. And that surrender is what makes the difference in our lives, in our lives of holiness and purity before God. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.